Hello, everyone. Steve Porter here with my thoughts and sort of a summary of the August 13th Town Council public hearings. Um, just as a reminder, these are my opinions and sort of my summary. They're not meant to represent the town or my employers or anything like that. And also, I am a political candidate, so this isn't a newscast. I'll definitely be presenting my take on some things, although I will try to give also a decent factual framework for what's going on. First of all, I really want to thank everyone who attended. It was wonderful to see so many people there and so many speakers. You all actually packed the main chamber and they had to go to the overflow chamber in the small conference room. So that was wonderful. And, many people spoke passionately, particularly about the Comstock development. And so, your voice made a difference. It obviously sent a message to Comstock and to Davis and to the town. So thank you very much. All right, so let's go ahead and get the website up. So this is the Herndon-va.gov website. So if you want to see if you want to review meetings or minutes, you scroll down to agendas and minutes. Then you can go into the civic clerk portal and then you find the meeting in question. So we're looking for the town council meeting that happened on August 13th. When you click on here, it'll bring up the agenda and all the different presentations, things like that. If you want to actually watch the meeting, you can click here on meeting media. I do recommend people watch these meetings and get an idea of sort of not only what was done, but who said what and how they said it and all that type of stuff. That's very important in understanding sort of how the council works and sort of the take that different council members approach things with is a good way of putting it. All right, so call to order, Pledge of Allegiance, presentations, town manager report. There wasn't a lot in it. There's stuff that's coming. Obviously, the town manager has resigned. His last day will be September 10th. So we'll get to that in a second. And then council member comments was up next. For the council member comments, just taking a look at my notes as well. Kevin spoke about the town rebranding survey. So there is a survey out there, both in English and Spanish, seeking your input about some questions around the current rebranding efforts. So if you haven't done that, that'd be good to do. And Kevin noticed that schools would be back next week at the time this was August 13th. Cesar brought up the flag and logo design that's part of the town rebranding survey, the upcoming pickleball tournament, the Latin Festival, which is coming up on the 14th, which I'm hopeful will be a really good event. Of all the events I think we've done, this is probably the one that most closely could align with the idea behind the cultural mini festivals. So hopefully it will be a good event. And then Cesar brought up something about possibly wanting to do a Tour de Herndon bike race thing. Sounds interesting. I believe it was on the radar Parks and Recs as well. So we'll see what happens with that. Pradeep said a bunch of stuff, but really nothing that was any different from what other people said. And Clark and Sheila basically, well, Clark referred to, thank most of the council members did mention National Night Out and that it was a success. Sheila also brought up that the photography contest for the town calendar had finished, and those are still on display, I believe, at Art Space if you want to go check them out. But you'll get to see the winners as part of the town calendar that comes out in late December, early January. So that covers the town council reports or the council member reports. So comments from the audience. This is on things that are not part of the public hearings. So one gentleman spoke a little bit about Bill Ashton and Bill Ashton's contributions to the town and basically thanking him. Another resident talked a little bit about the survey and just wishing that they'd included like none of the above or other blocks to allow, more free form input. Another gentleman talked about the pickleball tournament, which is open up for registration now. And then I made some comments about the town manager transition, which I'll talk about it a little bit more in a second. And Barbara talked about tax funding, rate of spending type concerns. So that basically sums up the comments from the audience, the general comments from the audience. The next thing was that Kevin had 2 items from the consent agenda moved out of the consent agenda, and I'll get to those when we get to that point of the meeting. So that brought us to the first of the public hearings, which was on Comstock and the motion to extend the outside satisfaction date from September 10th. It had been set to August 15th after a previous extension. They were requesting to extend it to September 10th to allow some final legal negotiations about modifications to the comprehensive agreement. This was by far the biggest piece of the overall meeting. Lots of comments on it. It started with a presentation by the Comstock CEO and also the president of the construction company, Davis Construction, was also present, which I think does say something about their commitment to the project, that those 2 significantly heavy hitters in this region actually were at the same public hearing at the same time to, bring us up to speed. Basically, the project was delayed for a number of reasons, the biggest being simply cost. That, we've seen interest rates particularly go up substantially, difficulties getting construction type financing. And he did address some of the common questions about things like, well, why is everything still being built in Reston? Because that's something that a lot of people, when I hit doors and talk to people, they're like, we have our little project here, but they somehow can continue to build, these big, skyscraper, at least high-rise type buildings in Reston. And what he said was that most of those, the financing and stuff, had locked in before COVID and before all this type of stuff hit. And so, if they were trying to do the same thing right now, it would be much more problematic. So, if you want, his presentation is in the town's website. And it's probably worth, if you're really interested in the downtown redevelopment, it is probably worth watching it. The short version of all of this is that they do believe the project is going to move forward. They're hopeful that they can begin initial site prep type work in January, as long as they can get the funding and stuff lined up, and then actually formal groundbreaking in April-ish timeframe. Now, they're going to focus first on getting the garage built because that's a real urgent need of the town, and then they'll work on building out the other space. So it looks hopeful. My comments were along the lines of, if this really is going to move forward, great. Let's get it moving forward. If this is just another delay, then let's just kill it. However, killing it is not an easy option. just so that people understand. It will be quite expensive. It will take a minimum of a year to 18 months to unwind things. That would, nothing will get done during those times, or very little can be done during those times. And then basically we're largely starting from a scratch position. So it's not really in any of our best interests to, have that happen. I am a bit concerned about what the rework of the comprehensive agreement actually is going to look like. So that's supposed to be presented leading up to the September 10th public hearing. And so, we'll see what it says. I'm guessing that either there is increases in our costs as a town, or that what we're getting out of this is less, both of which is unfortunate. The question is, in the grand scheme of things, is it within tolerance? So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Let's see, moving on next, we've got, bring up the agenda. The general items, I'm going to leave this up because I can move through these pretty fast. Basically, the two general items that were initially on the general item section of the agenda were both related to the town manager transition. First was basically authorizing the mayor to sign various documents that she needs to sign related to Mr. Ashton's resignation, contracting with the firms that are going to help us replace him, that type of stuff. So really sort of a no-brainer. The second one was the motion to appoint an interim town manager. And I actually like how the town's approaching this. Basically, they reached out to a respected staffing firm, for lack of better words, to find a part-time interim town manager. And basically, they selected Chris Martino, who is a retired county administrator from Prince William County. He'll be helping the two deputy town attorneys, town administrators, manage things until the permanent replacement can get on board. He's a good choice. He understands police forces. He understands larger budget type localities. He's got good sense of, the Northern Virginia region and some of the quirks about, trying to be the chief administrative officer in those settings. So I think Chris will work well for us. The second part of this process is they hired a separate firm who will be handling speccing out the requirements for a town manager, recruiting, screening, those type of things. And, eventually they'll come up with a relatively small pool of candidates that when will have to go before, assumedly, the next town council for a final selection. So more to come on that topic. And then the two items that got moved out of the consent agenda were these two appointments. Basically, some information came to light, not against the candidates that were suggested, but just there was some concerns, particularly about the Planning Commission one, that the person being replaced had a lot of knowledge that hasn't necessarily transitioned to other members of the Planning Commission yet, and that might be problematic. And Kevin LeBlanc felt it was at least worth the town council taking another look at these, just to make sure that it really does make sense for both the Historic District Review and Architectural Review Board and the Planning Commission to change up, to replace a currently sitting person with a new person. Again, nothing against the new people they've selected, just trying to make sure that they're doing what's best for the town overall. So I assume that will come back as well at the September 10th public hearing. The other things on the consent agenda were pretty straightforward. Approve a license temporary agreement between Jimmy's and the town to use the public space in the alley for a couple of events. Some things to change the authority to allow the town manager and or his designee to approve certain types of requests related to subdivisions rather than having to have them go to higher level councils, various committees, etc. And then they just approve some minutes. So that pretty much sums up the meeting. Like I said, if you want to watch it, probably the section that is most applicable to watch will be the stuff around the Comstock agreement. There's a lot of data there. There's a lot of frustration on the part of some of the council members and the community. Comstock, I think, did a reasonable job addressing most of that. So the proof, if you will, is going to be in the pudding, right? It's going to see what happens on the 10th, and then hopefully this project will move forward and we can get the downtown built. And I think at this point, even people who are not necessarily super pro downtown development really would like the project to move somewhere, right? Having a fenced off yard and stuff just isn't real good for the town. So that's what I've got for this. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and for your comments, suggestions. If you've got any, let me know. And otherwise, I wish everyone the best. And this little presentation was paid for and authorized by Stephen Porter for Town Council. Thank you.